Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Agent Advantage podcast. I'm here with my buddy Dan DeMott, and we are going to be talking about all things cold calling, prospecting. But first, I'll let Dan introduce himself and say hello. So, Dan, say hello to the good people.
Hey, Lorne, thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Uh, my name is Dan DeMott. I'm the owner of the Home Source team at Keller Williams. We are down in Boynton Beach, Florida, which is Palm Beach County on the southeast coast. And currently we are a team of 10 servicing the Palm Beach, Broward, and St. Lucie County area. I started the business like everyone else, a solo agent. Grew my team over time, and right now this year we're on track for about $50 million worth of sales. It'll be well over 150 transactions this year.
Awesome. Excellent. So, tell me a little bit about how you got started in the industry. I find it interesting because everyone has a different background and they wind up in real estate for different reasons. So, tell me a little bit about yours.
Sure. So I was born into the industry. I am one of the rare people who got their license right away, right when I turned 18. My family was in the business, so I was really lucky there. Had an independent brokerage here in Boynton Beach. So I did it a little bit when I was 18, went to school, had a good time in college, got a degree in real estate, and was really fortunate to get into commercial real estate on the private equity investing side. Did that for a number of years and then reached the right point in my life where I was ready to be a little more entrepreneurial, go back to the family business. And so I left the corporate job, so to speak, started a property management company, built that up and sold it, and then jumped headfirst into residential sales in the family company in 2018. So that was kind of my first year just doing residential sales.
Okay.
And started like everyone else, working my sphere of influence and slowly built, got an admin. And then last year, right before COVID, had an opportunity to go out to Texas and meet the team at Keller Williams. Was extremely impressed with everything they had and their vision for the future of the industry, and decided to merge my family's independent brokerage into a team here at our local Keller Williams office. And literally joined the office 1 week before the COVID shutdowns.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, great timing. So you could imagine my family's 27-year family-owned business. I come back from an amazing trip, convince them that we're going to close up, shop and move over to Keller Williams, and then sign the papers, get the keys, and we can't even go in the office. So after a brief panic attack, I decided to, put my head down, work really hard, and thankfully things broke our way. We built our team up from 3 to 10 and doubled our production last year, and we're on track to double again this year.
Excellent. So, a question for you: when you decided to move your family's independent brokerage over to Keller Williams as a team, did you have any drop offs? Did anyone have any rubs? Because that's definitely a big move for somebody going from an independent to under the structure of a different brand.
Yeah, fortunately, we did not. I mean, we were a small group, mostly family. When we made the transition, we've since brought on a lot of other people who are not in the family, although they're part of our work family now, so to
Right.
speak. But it was a great change, and I'm really lucky that people. I conveyed the value I saw and what it would allow us to do with our business. They trusted in me, and so far it's panned out really well.
Awesome, fantastic. So tell me a little bit about getting business because you have family in the business. You have that advantage of being able to, work off of the experience of those that have come before you and
Sure.
get real insight into what real estate is really like, not just what some of us see on TV and think, oh, that's easy enough. I'll just do that.
Yeah. Right.
So, so why don't you tell me a little bit about how maybe your parents built their business and then how you built yours?
Sure. I mean, the reality is both were really the same. While I certainly had the advantage of that well of experience to draw from, I wasn't given, any kind of free leads or opportunities when I joined in. It was kind of very much, this is how we did it, which is you work your sphere of influence, you network, you bring value to people, you try to be helpful, and, you build it over time. So that was how I started, truly. It's how I started the property management company. And then when I switched over to residential sales, that's how I did that. Where we really started to accelerate, though, was when I started circle prospecting, right? And kind of cracked the code on how do you take one deal that you get from your database and convert it to, another piece of business and another piece of business after that. So that was really the change that I brought, when I joined, because I have a young family and mouths to feed and school bills to pay. And, I could not sit around and wait for my database to generate, the business I needed.
Yeah, welcome to my world. I totally understand that. So, why don't you tell me a little bit before we get into circle prospecting? How did you work your database to get those initial deals? What were you doing to generate that business?
Just the basic blocking and tackling, right? Calling, sending cards, connecting with people on social media organically, not through any kind of advertising or anything like that, but just trying to let people know I was there, I was in the business. And I mentioned, but my family's always done this, and it's been the key to my successes, is to bring value. So I'm not, just call Dan if you are ready to sell a house, because he's going to give you the hard sell. But I like to be, call me for anything. Call me if you need a contractor referral. Call me if you got a question about property taxes. I'm here to provide value as it relates to real estate and be a resource. And so I think that helps a lot, and it keeps the conversations coming in, right? First, it's, my AC is broken. Who should I call? Then
Right.
it's, by the way, my friend is, looking to buy a house. Can you help them out?
See, the reason I ask is a lot of the time you get agents saying, I don't want to bother my friends all the time and family. I don't even know what to say when I call them. And you read, MREA or whatever, they tell you all these different touches. You got to call them. You got to be in touch. What do you talk about? How do you
Yeah.
approach it? So that's why I ask your approach was.
Yeah, my approach. I'll tell you, my approach was always to just have a personal conversation, not to be about real estate, right? To just connect with people. These are your friends and family, and and I think so. People, whenever someone makes a career change into real estate, there's that hesitancy, and it's natural, and you do have to earn a little bit of that trust, right? But I think when you come from a place of providing value, and so all of my communication has always been about that. What's going on in the market? If you need a refinance, here's people that I trust. And just trying to provide value. And if you stick to it, it's slow in the beginning, but then people understand your intention that comes through, and I think that's what matters most.
And I think it's important to mention that to people that are listening that are just new in the business or just going to start reaching out to people. This is not an overnight thing. You call someone, oh, by the way, I was just thinking of selling something. No, no, no. You're depositing. You're making little deposits along the way of value, like you said, and then over time that trust builds, and they understand you're in the business, and they're going to go to you when it is time, right? Okay, so let's get into the
100%.
prospecting thing. Tell me a little bit about that. How did that come about?
Yeah. So, like I said, that came from that organic need to get more than what I was doing the database. I was making the calls, but you reach that point where you can only make those calls so many times. You can only send so many emails, and you're doing a thing, and it does take some time to percolate. So I needed something proactive, and so I tried a bunch of different things. I tried expireds. That wasn't for me. I tried for sale by owners, and I did have success with that, and that was something I liked. But at that time in the market, there weren't a lot of them.
Right.
And so, who knows how I came across it? It's certainly not a new concept. Probably, a YouTube video or something was circle prospecting, and it really appealed to me in the same way that was that bring value approach, right? I took circle prospecting scripts, but I made them much more of a soft sell and much more about bringing value than they already were. The beauty to me of circle prospecting was you were calling people who weren't getting phone calls from anybody else, right? So there's no competition. You're just blindly calling an entire neighborhood. And the value proposition is to share some news about a recent transaction which affects their home. So that conversation is very easy. Hey, your neighbor's house sold. I'm just calling everyone to let you know the details. It positively affects the value of your home. Isn't that fantastic? Do you have any questions or anything I can do to give you more value, more information about that? So what I found was it was perfect for me because I wasn't asking for anything, right?
Right.
There's no sales pitch there. There's no solicitation. I'm bringing value. And worst case scenario was someone would say, thanks for letting me know. I'm not interested. Goodbye. But then people kind of self-identify, right? Some people would say, "Oh, we saw that, and we were wondering what they were going to get," and now you can naturally take a conversation further because you started coming from a place of value.
So when you started this whole thing, you were making your calls. Did you start to see any immediate results, or did it take time to build?
I would tell you that it was relatively pretty quick. I mean, I would say probably within the first 2 weeks, you know, it was appointments and follow-ups, right? There's kind of that, because you're not asking that solicitation on the first call, right? So this approach requires a little bit more of a back and forth, a little bit more follow-up.
Right.
But so it takes a couple weeks to kind of get going. You have a positive phone call on day one, you send them some information, you follow up 3 days later, then you have another call, and then you get invited to the house, right? It's kind of a slow courtship as opposed to you know, are you interested in selling right now approach. So it
Right.
takes a couple of weeks, but honestly, pretty quickly, within 2 to 3 weeks, I was going on appointments, with people that I had just called out of the blue.
So let's talk about the numbers. Were you using a dialer to reach people?
Yeah, so I use Vulcan 7. I used them from the beginning and am a huge supporter of their product, and continue to use it now. Now I've transitioned to having a team, and so I just trained others on how to use those same tools and scripts that work for me. But the dialer, Vulcan 7 dialer, Vulcan 7 data is very high quality. So we get a really high success rate in terms of being able to contact someone who's directly affiliated with that property.
Hmm.
And the dialer is a very efficient way to do it. And it's all built into one platform, which I love.
Perfect. Now you're using the dialer. What are the numbers that you're trying to hit? Have you found a sweet spot in terms of amount of time calling or numbers dialed or contacts? How does that all work?
Yeah, so we've developed and tested it out now enough times that I think these are pretty reliable metrics for someone on a dialer. The goal is on 2 hours tops. So we lead gen 9 to 11. The goal is about 100 dials. Out of 100 dials, you should have about 15 to 20 conversations, and out of that, you should be getting 2 to 3 people who are interested in at least some more information. Right. So basically, I view that process as kind of mining for the leads.
Right.
Right. And so out of 2 hours, you should be able to get 2 to 3 leads. That is someone who will, at least, you had a positive conversation. They were open to receiving an email from you with some additional information about that sale you're calling to discuss, and then you can have a follow-up conversation with them, right? So that's the end of that script is, I'd love to send you some information about this sale and a few others in your neighborhood. Can we get on a call tomorrow afternoon after you had a chance to take a look at them? Right. So we consider that a solid lead. And so if you think about it, you're 2 hours on the phone, you're talking to about 20 people, and you're getting about 10%, of those to convert to leads. And then we also, I would say, so 2 to 3 really solid leads. And we probably add about another 5 to 6 people to the database, right? So that kind of that next category, the first category, people who identified as interested in learning more and having another conversation. Those are our A leads. And then we call the next ones the database, which is someone where you had a positive conversation. They weren't necessarily interested in doing something, but the conversation went well enough that you could say to them, hey, I'd love to get your email and send you a monthly email about sales in your neighborhood. Not going to send you spam, but just monthly update, just what's going on in your neighborhood, just to be helpful for you. And that person will give you the email. And so we do that as well. That's kind of the talk back of the script.
Okay. So you got qualifiers, you got A leads, B leads. A
Yep.
leads are people that have a sense that they're maybe doing something and they want a little more in-depth information and are
Yes,
sort of interact. B is you had a conversation, they're not planning on doing anything. Maybe you want to just sort of keep them long term in the database.
exactly.
Okay, perfect. So the next question is the follow-up. In terms of if we look at kind of the funnel, the pipeline overall, you're
Mhm.
making calls. First of all, how do you decide which area to call?
So we call based on one of our other sales, right? So the business continues based on my genesis of it. I would get a deal from my database, and then I would circle prospect around that deal, right? So we would call when we go on the market. If we do an open house, we invite them to the open house. If it's just listed, we just call to let them know it was just listed. Then we call again when it went under contract, and then again when it closed. So you're making regular, you're becoming kind of a fixture in this community. Now you had the open house. We also send out postcards. So we send just listed and just sold postcards. So essentially the circle prospecting becomes the active component of a marketing strategy around some piece of business we're already doing, right? And so if I list a house in your neighborhood, you're going to get 3 phone calls and 2 postcards from me. And you're probably going to see my open house and you're going to see my sign over 60 to 90 days. That's an intensive, marketing program to a small group of people.
Now, if you contact somebody on the just listed point, so you just listed a house in this neighborhood, you're calling around to let people know, hey, we're just listed this house in this neighborhood. It's going to be for sale for this much money. Just thought you might like to know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You get a hold of this person, you have a conversation. Do you then call them for, hey, it just firmed up, and then, hey, it just closed? You call the same
Yep.
person?
We call all the same numbers. So whether we talk to the person or didn't talk to the person, they're going to get those 3 phone calls.
So making notes are definitely important in this process, right? Because you want to know if you've spoken to somebody before, you want to know that you had a conversation with them
Yeah.
before. Otherwise, you look pretty dumb, right?
Right. So what we end up doing is Vulcan 7 gives you the ability to tag and sort the contacts as you're working through them.
Right.
So we have a little system on the dialer with buttons so you can identify if on the first call someone expresses some interest, we tag them one way. If you don't talk to them or they're not interested, we tag them a different way, and then we treat them accordingly as we move through that process. Ultimately, all of the leads that we collect, which are either in that A or B category over the course of the circle prospecting, move out of Vulcan and then into our database.
Okay. And are there any people that you decide not to? Like if somebody is having a bad day and they tell you to go take a hike, do you avoid them or do you call them and let them know with updates?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a firm believer of wanting to do business with people who want to do business with me, and we're providing value. Again, I'm not soliciting people. I'm calling to provide them with value. So the good news is because of that approach, we don't get a lot of that. But if we do, if someone doesn't want to be bothered, I don't want to bother them, and so we just remove them from the list.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you there. Okay, so again, 50,000 foot view of that funnel. You're getting a listing. You're making calls on the just listed. You're sending out postcards on the just listed in that area as well. So they're
Yep.
going to see the postcard. They're going to get the call. Do you leave voicemails if they don't answer?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you're a proponent of leaving voicemails because, like you said, you're not asking for anything. You're just giving value. Is another way to drop your name.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things to it. One is that I just find it to be weird to call someone and not leave them a voicemail, right? You wouldn't do that to anyone you knew, so why would you do it to someone you would like to do business with? Second, again, to your point, it does bring some name recognition, right? This person's going to be hearing and seeing this name multiple times. The third thing is when you're on a dialer, you can go through a run of getting voicemails, right?
Right.
And if you aren't leaving voicemail and you're just going next, 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 you could go a couple minutes and you haven't spoken. So now someone answers the phone and you just trip over your words, right? So the voicemail kind of it's really short and sweet. Hey, this is Dan DeMott with Keller Williams, just calling to let you know about a house we listed in your neighborhood. Give me a call back when you have a minute, right? But it keeps you talking. So when the person picks up, you're ready to go, as opposed to kind of like choking and stumbling and your mouth's all dried out because you've been sitting there for 2 minutes.
I hear you. Okay, good point. I mean, do you also have in Vulcan 7? I'm familiar with Mojo. So in
Okay.
Vulcan 7, do they have a pre-recorded voicemail that you can drop as well?
They do, but again, we don't do that to that third point. Yeah.
Gotcha. That makes sense. It keeps you on your toes. All right, cool. So again, funnel just listed. Send out a postcard. Make the phone call. Firms up. You're letting people know.
Yep.
Just sold, closed, whatever. You're sending out the postcard. Again, calling people, following up. Now, what kind of information are you sending to these people that you do contact with, the 2 or 3 that you do get a hold of in each session?
Yep. Really, really simple email, plain text email says, with a pleasure speaking to you today. Here's a link to our listing. Here's a link to some other sales that happened in your neighborhood that we reviewed to price this property. You know, take a look at them. would love to have a conversation to discuss how your home compares, right? That's kind of the hook that I like to use, and what can come back to that. And then we also include a link to some of our reviews and some things for people that kind of proof of production and validity. But it's a really, really simple email. To come back to the point about the hook there and the hook on the conversation. If you got someone who's interested, the ask is, I'd like to send you some information about what homes are worth in your neighborhood. I'd like you to review it. Tell me how and then let's get on a call and you tell me how your house compares so I can give you better information, right? I'll give you the interpretation. So I give them the raw data. I just give them the MLS comps, right? But I don't give them in that email the interpretation. You want the interpretation, you have to get back on the phone with us.
Gotcha.
That comes from one, that's kind of I think that's a good hook, because everyone wants to say, oh, John's house down the street was a piece of junk and he never took care of it. And I put the new floors and I got the better kitchen and whatever, right? So everyone wants to talk about how great their house is. Second part to that is it's a foundational element to building trust in a relationship, right? So you called someone out of the clear blue sky. They have no idea who you are or why you're calling them. You got on the phone and you gave them some value and they expressed an interest. So now we've got to set a foundation for this relationship. The foundation is, I'm going to send you an email with something you'd like to see, and then you're going to agree to get back on the phone with me so we can discuss it, right? So that's to kind of, if you look at it in the realm of dating, right? That's like, let's go out to a cup of coffee and then we'll see where it goes from there, right? It's low stakes for someone to get back on the phone with you. And so what we find is, when people cancel, we end up getting a really good reschedule rate. My kind of standard follow-up, if someone agrees to get on the phone to discuss that email and they don't show up, is to text them, are you okay? Right? Like you would do if you and I, scheduled to get on the phone. Well, like you did, I was a couple minutes late and you text me, are we still on? Are we good? Right? So it's that, it breaks down that barrier of like, this is a solicitation or this person's trying to just get me to sell my house.
Right.
It's, hey, I'm in business to provide value and we're starting a relationship and I actually care about you. So you told me I told you I'd send you an email. I did that. You told me you'd get on the phone with me and you didn't show up. I want to make sure you're okay. Like we can get to business whenever, but is there a reason you didn't show up and you need help? And so we find that even when we have people who don't show up, they will respond to that and reschedule and say, oh my God, I'm sorry, something came up, and can we talk on Friday or Saturday?
So you're booking an actual appointment for the phone. You're not saying, I'll call you on Friday to follow up to make sure you got it. You're saying, why don't we talk about it Friday at 2:00?
Exactly. And sort of, it comes sort of a soft booking. And again, because it's not, can I come to your house and give you a listing presentation? It's just, take a look at the email and let's get on the phone and talk about it, how your house compares to the others. Is Thursday good or is Friday better? I got 2 or 3. What's the best time, right? And try to book and confirm that appointment. It also gets, as it's gone from me to a team, it gets it establishes that rhythm, right? You do lead gen, you get leads, you book appointments, you go on appointments, you do your follow-up, right? You're inching your way closer to a piece of business.
Okay, so what is the follow up after that point? So now you've booked them for Friday at 2:00 for the follow up after you sent them the email.
Yep.
What does that phone call sound like?
Yeah, so that's a pretty, again, very organic. Did you look at the email? What do you think? How does your house compare? Did you do any upgrades, right? And in that conversation is when we start to also get into some of those motivation questions that are in most scripts, right? I've just shifted them to a second, to that coffee date, right? If you sold, where are you going? If we could get you the price you wanted, how soon would you like to be there, right? So you start to vet out some of the motivation, you gather a little bit more information about the property, right? And then you can kind of, depending on how that call goes, it can be, as simple as just, oh, I think you'd be in the higher range and this is kind of the pricing. And that person says, isn't interested, but they appreciate the time and let's keep in touch. Then they go into our database and get treated like everyone who's in our sphere of influence. Or more likely, it seems to go, well, that's interesting. If I could get that much, I'd really be interested. And then it's, great. What I'd love to do is come by, see the property, meet you in person, tell you a little bit more about our team, right? And so then you're kind of setting up for that listing appointment.
Okay. So what if this person sounds like, and you don't know until you get your eyes on the property, but it sounds like they're out to lunch. Like you said in the beginning, everyone says they think their house is special. We all know
Yep.
this.
Yep.
So the house down the street sold for $700,000. They think their house is worth, 850, easy.
Yep.
You're thinking there's no way, this person's nuts.
Right.
Where do you go from there? Do you get together with them to take a look at the house, or do you just sort of like write them off as crazy town?
100%. I don't write anybody off. First of all, I have a fundamental belief that our job as real estate agents is not to tell someone what their home is worth. That's the market's
Right.
job, right? That's what the market's going to do for us. So I train my team that conversation, I want to always tell two stories. One story is, this is what the empirical data is telling us, right? And try to at least explain so that person can intellectually understand why, they think it's worth 850 and I think it's worth 750, right? So can we have this conversation? Can we dig into, okay, this person put a kitchen, you haven't updated your kitchen, and that's 20 grand, right? And so at least document them. They don't have to believe it, but I want them to the logical part of the brain to at least understand that. And I want it documented of what we think it should price at, right?
Right.
Simultaneously, I want to tell this story. If anybody's going to get you that price, it's going to be us, because we do this kind of marketing and we do internet leads and we do open houses and the circle prospecting, which is how we came to be sitting here today. Have you ever met another real estate agent who's done that? And then we're telling the whole story of our team and why we go above and beyond and why we continually outperform the market, right? So you're kind of setting this thing of, this is what we think it's worth, this is what you think it's worth, and I'm willing to go to bat to try to get it, and the market's going to tell us where it's at.
Right.
I think, right? So you can get people comfortable with those two thoughts simultaneously of, okay, you plant that seed of doubt on what it is, and it gives you that anchor point, right? So now you go to market, you're overpriced, you're on the market for 3 weeks, you're not getting any showings, right? Now you start to have the conversation of, remember when we went through those numbers, right? We're here. Here's all the marketing that I promised you I would do. I did it, right? People are looking. The beauty of the internet today is we can document how many people saw it on Zillow, how many people saw it on Realtor.com, how many agents on the MLS looked at it. So people are looking at it and they're not coming out. What's that tell us, right? And so you put yourself in this position when you have to go have that conversation where you've built the story up for them and you've proven the things you said. You went to bat, you did the marketing, you did your job, you gave it the college try, and now we're back to that conversation we had before where I kind of told you where I thought things would be. So we do, I will always take a listing, even if it's overpriced, provided we did a good job documenting what we thought it should be worth, because I have a really high success rate getting those price reductions when we get there.
Okay. Good to know. So now, when do you go into that appointment? So you got phone call one is sort of like a pre-qualification. You're just getting to know each other. Let's say you were introduced like in the dating world by a friend, and just sort of getting to know each other. Second call is sort of the coffee call, right?
Yep.
Where like, what are the motivations? Is there any real qualification for us to get together? Yes, the next step is getting to their house. Now, is getting to their house, is that a listing appointment officially, or is that just going to check out the house and
so I say always prep for that listing appointment, right? And then you see where it goes, or organically, right? And I have more of a loose listing presentation. So we have a presentation. I don't, necessarily always or insist on sitting down and let me walk you through the process, right? Because I find if you're having a natural organic conversation with someone, now you're there, you're talking about real estate. What else are you going to talk about? And you get your opportunities to make those points, right? Naturally, it usually comes up in the conversation. Well, what are you going to do to market my home? Well, terrific. Let me show you. This is our, so you can kind of find your way into that listing presentation. So we have a lot of people who will go. It doesn't, that person was not really that interested, right? The conversation went better than the reality. And so you never get into it and you part you made a good relationship, you put faces and names together, and we're going to continue to keep in touch. Or I've had it, where you just end up in a listing presentation organically because they're asking questions and that information you have in your document. And we've had it where people just have an organic conversation. And they're like, I like what you did. I like how we got in contact. I like how knowledgeable in this process. Let's go. What's the next steps?
Okay. So that's really it from sort of ground zero to listing presentation right there. Now,
Yep.
for the people that aren't ready right now, how do you follow up with them?
Sure. So anyone once we've had some relationship, we put them in our database and we treat them just like anyone else in our sphere of influence, right? So they're getting monthly emails from us. They're going to get quarterly phone calls. They get holiday text messages. They get cards, a couple cards throughout the years. So we're just kind of keeping in touch, with them as we would anybody else that we know.
And are you mainly staying within a geographic farm area when you're talking about this whole process, or are you just kind of scattered?
It's become kind of scattered. So essentially what we have is a lot of micro farms, right? Because the seed is whatever piece of business we got. So if someone from my database calls and it's, 30-minute drive away from the office, you know, that's our foot in the door to that community. And then we run our process and we continue to evolve it. As we've grown the team and we have made this process um, replicatable and we're having success with it, we've now just this year we introduced true farming. So what we do is every neighborhood starts with something from our database.
Yep.
If we do the circle prospecting. If we can get 2 more deals out of circle prospecting, then I commit to farming that neighborhood on a monthly basis.
Okay, so what kind of numbers, if somebody's just thinking about getting into this, what kind of numbers should they expect and what kind of timeline should they expect? I mean, being conservative about it. So you had mentioned you typically do 2 hours a day, kind of
Yep.
11. You're making about roughly 100 calls with around 15 to 20 contacts, which
Yep.
leads to 2 or 3 appointments.
Yep.
Okay. So what does that translate to in terms of business? How long does it take for that to turn into business? What should people expect?
Yeah. So the key is sticking to that, right? That's the problem for everyone. If you really run it 5 days a week.
Right.
Um, but I will tell you that if you truly stuck to that, I would expect you there'll be a bit of a ramp up, but let's say by the second, in the second month, you should be getting to taking a listing a week. I I have I have people on my team who do that schedule and can consistently pull in a listing a week. And there's some variability there, right? It might be, they go a couple weeks without, but then they get a few because you're doing that follow up game.
Yeah.
But
Set robotically, but it works out in the end.
exactly. And it's really just about establishing that rhythm of making the phone calls, generating leads to be appointments, to be getting it right. And it's just that funnel. Like you said, it's a numbers game at the end of the day. You have to follow the process. And if you stop putting things in the top of the funnel, they're going to stop coming out the bottom. And
Exactly.
if you don't put enough in, that's where people also go wrong. It is a numbers game based on averages, right? If you if you make 100 dials in one day, right? So you made 500 in a week, you're going to get a listing. If you make 100 on Monday and then none on Tuesday and then 30 on Wednesday, right? You still got to get to 500, right? Before you get it. You just stretched out the pain of getting there.
Yeah, exactly. So I was going to ask you, if you're doing it 5 days a week, you're 9 to 11. Is that new fresh dials, or is that follow up dials, or is that a combination of both?
Combination of both. We will occasionally throw in like an afternoon session, like a 4 to 6. So like when we're running the Vulcan dialer, we sort out ones where we've left a voicemail, right? And those go in a separate folder. So if we've worked those over in the 9 to 11, we might throw in take that list and call all the voicemails 4 to 6, because maybe those people are already at work in the morning, but they get off early and they're more likely to answer the phone in the afternoon. And so we will mix that up a little bit, but the general focus is always, new dials every day. And again, once you get a couple deals going, right, you're dialing each neighborhood 3 times over the course of having one listing there,
Right.
right? The other thing I will tell you is for agents who don't have enough business going, you can circle prospect someone else's recent sale, right? I wouldn't do their new listing, but I would do their recent sale. Or if you want to get into a neighborhood, find the recent sale, find out what was special about it. Was it a new high price? Was it a low price for some reason? Did it go under contract in 2 days? And then call and share that information. You don't, you just say, hey, your neighbor's house sold and it sold for the highest price in that neighborhood in 10 years. Isn't that amazing? Are you curious about what that means for your property? So there's a limitless amount of, you know, lists, so to speak, or leads that you could call using this strategy.
Absolutely. So, in terms of keeping track of who you're following up with, I know you say you make notes within Vulcan,
Mm-hmm.
and you can put different tags there. Can you set them up for a redial on a specific date and everything, and it just pops into your system? Is that how you're doing it, or are you putting them into a separate CRM?
Yeah. So when you do it, Vulcan does have the ability to add tasks and reminders and all of that stuff when they're in there, which is fantastic. The ability to enter all the notes in there. Once we have that, conversation that's going to take this relationship to the next step, whether it's they're just going to go in our database or they're a possible lead that we can follow up on, we take them out of Vulcan and move them into our CRM and then monitor them in there.
Which CRM are you using?
We use Keller Williams Command.
Okay.
Yep.
And then they get, from that point on, they typically get your monthly update, you said, right?
Yep. Yeah. So they're going to get monthly emails. They're going to get quarterly phone calls. So we we track them more closely if they're converting to an appointment. We put them in our pipeline report, right? So that basically the kind of workflow for the morning is new dials 9 to 11, and then your follow ups, right? And so in that time, everyone's looking at their pipeline and saying, okay, we keep it visual, right? Who's in here? Who do I need to follow up on? Who you kind of can see the lay of the land and figure and make sure you don't forget anybody.
Okay, great. That's good, because what happens a lot of the time is that people will start making calls, and it's just too much to keep track of, right?
Yeah.
Unless you have a system in place, people will just fall through the cracks.
Yep.
And it's just a waste of time in the end.
Yep. The you can do a lot of business just cutting new territory if you stuck to it, right? The numbers still play out, but it's that ROI on your time, right, is in the follow up, right? So it's those ones where you're banking your pipeline, right? Those people who are interested, you had a good conversation and you kept in touch, and 3 months later they call you and say, you know what, I'm ready to list. Truly, just yesterday, one of the guys on my team came in. He's getting a listing from someone that we've been in contact with for over a year. You know, he went through that process. We circle prospected him. We had a meeting with him at the house, saw the property, did a little listing presentation. He wasn't ready. He had some other things going on. But we kept in touch, and he called and said, hey, I'm ready to sell now. Let's go.
And what sort of format does your monthly newsletter look like?
Really simple, just kind of a formatted email newsletter with some of our branding on it, a link to a real estate article, usually a testimonial from one of our clients, maybe one of our listings featured, but pretty simple. I'm a fan of simplicity. I do a lot of plain text emails as well, even if we do them in mass, because I think that everyone's mobile now. Plain text comes through a lot easier, seems more personal, and so we're still finding the balance on doing both of those. Some with a little bit of branding, right? So you get that brand and name recognition. Some that seem more personal, and maybe you can get a little bit more engagement.
Okay. And is that like a drip campaign, or is that something that you're putting together manually?
We have both.
Okay.
Yeah, we have both. We have some that are automated and we just put them on, when we put them in the database to kind of get things going. And then we have some that we update on a monthly basis.
Great. Now, you also mentioned that you do quarterly phone calls with these people in their database. And what are you calling them about quarterly? Are you just looking up kind of their neighborhood and letting them know what's happening?
Just a real simple quarterly check-in. Like I said, like it's anybody else in your database. Hey, how's it going? Stan and Keller Williams. Was thinking about you the other day and just thought I'd give a call. All good. Anything I can do to be helpful for you. Great. We're here if you need us. Always have a great week. Really simple, just a check-in. Really just about that mind share, right? You want to keep being the top of mind person, be the person who followed up, and also coming from that place of value and not asking for anything. I think, I really want to break as an industry the idea of real estate agents as salespeople on the consumer front.
Right.
This is a podcast for other agents, agents to agents. We are in the sales business. There's no doubt about that. Consumers should think of us as resources and trusted professionals, right? Advising them on one of their largest financial assets over the course of their life, not just someone that they deal with when they need to make a transaction. All right. And you break that stereotype by providing value, by making those phone calls. To me, are the most important thing we do, where we just call to just say, hey, how's it going? Is there anything I can do for you? No. Awesome. Have a great week. We're here if you need us, because that just changes people's perception. You didn't call and ask for anything. When they pick up the phone and you say, hey, it's Dan with Keller Williams, they are expecting you to ask them something, right?
You ready to sell now?
Right. Exactly. Ready to sell? Do you know anybody who wants to buy or sell?
Right.
When you say, you can almost hear it over the phone when you say, I'm just calling to check in. How are you doing? Right. Especially coming off of what we all went through last year.
Right.
Right. And most people are kind of get a little caught off guard, and which makes the conversation almost a little bit easier, because and then they're like waiting for the ask, and you're just like, no, well, listen, we're here if you need us, if there's anything we can do to help you, otherwise, have a great day. And so I think that pays back in those times when, like the example from the guy yesterday, over a year later, he's picking up the phone, he's calling us, and he doesn't think twice about who he's calling. He's going to call the only person who called them every quarter for the past year, asking him how he was doing.
Right. Well, consistency establishes trust, and that's really important. And it also, there's a big difference between somebody fly by night, like you said, salesy. Are you looking to buy or sell now? No, goodbye.
Right.
As opposed to taking that consultative, advisory sort of approach, and really coming with value, and trying to care about the person, establishing a relationship, and then eventually that relationship will pay off in the end, right?
Exactly right.
Excellent. So, a question for you about the team. How do you keep team members motivated and on structure to be consistent with the systems and the calls that you're talking about in generating business?
Yeah, huge challenge. And something, I'm definitely not an expert at it. Something I'm constantly trying to work on, right? Myself as I've transitioned from being a real estate agent to being a leader, right? And I have to lead them. And so we've tried a number of different things. We do a weekly meeting to really kind of review the whole business, get everybody together. We do a daily call in the morning, try to be as consistent to daily as we can. It doesn't always work out, but to just try to get everybody on a quick FaceTime as a group, and just talk about what's your intention for the day. What are you calling? How many appointments are you going on? And just, and so I think through that kind of team spirit, it's like, people have their good days and their bad days, their ups and downs, the personal life pulls them in and out.
Right.
But I try to create as much consistency around, all right, let's all just try to connect and agree we want to try to be on the same page, right? And do this. Um, and then one-on-one coaching and consulting, and just kind of seeing, are people where they want to be for their individual goals, and are their activities mapping to the goals that they've set for themselves.
Do you do any kind of competition or tracking, like, oh, this person hit their numbers for the month or whatever, they're, something like that?
We've done some of that, with mixed results, and I think some of that's probably my culture. I'm not the most competitive kind of person.
Hmm.
So I try to go for more of the team spirit. We celebrate a lot of wins. We have a group text, right? Someone tells me, hey, I got a listing appointment. We put it in there. Everyone gives them a pat on the back and a like on that. And we try to celebrate when people get an appointment, when they make 100 phone calls. So whatever the activity is that comes across, we try to just as a team support everybody. And I think that kind of culture of just like, you know, push for the team, right? Do your part, whatever that part might be for the day, whatever you can do, or whatever you can accomplish that's going to get our team towards the goal. We want to celebrate that.
Awesome. So, in closing here, you've given us a lot of value and a lot to think about. So, thank you so much for sharing your systems and processes. What would you say to somebody who's maybe thinking of getting into this, whether they're an established agent, just haven't done this for their business, or they're a brand new agent? What would you say to them?
I would say, mentally make the commitment to it and stick with it for 30 days. And I would say, whether that's circle prospecting or anything in real estate, the amazing thing about this industry is that every single type of lead generation, every strategy, they all work if you do them, right? Some of them may or may not be for you. The key is to find the ones that do, but also give it the effort and give it the time to see if it really is. So if you want to try circle prospecting, you know, get yourself set up the right way. I highly suggest Vulcan, um, and get your scripts together, plan your day out, and commit to the activity and give it, 5 days a week for 30 days and see what your results are. If it's not for you, great, try the next thing, but use that same process so that you find out which of those things is for you. And then once you find your thing, stick to it as best you can.
Absolutely. I think you hit it on the nose where you said there's so many ways of generating business. We meet people in this industry when you're in it for any length of time that have had success. They could be picking their nose on a street corner and that's their way of generating business. Like literally, it's the stupidest thing. Not quite that, obviously. It's an
Right.
example, but I mean, people get business. Who the hell knows? And they're extremely successful. It's just it has to be congruent with who they are and what they're comfortable with and what they'll be consistent with.
Yep.
So anyone watching or listening, find what works for you. You're not going to know that until you try it. How do you try it? Commit to 30 days, 5 days a week. Do it. Figure out, does this work for you? Does it feel comfortable for you? You're going to have to step out of your comfort zone no matter what. But after 30 days, you'll have established that. Is this comfortable for me going forward? Is this something I can do consistently? And does it get me the results? Then you'll know what works for you. Get 2 or 3 of those pillars and you're a rock star, right?
That's it. And one of them should be the database, right?
Yes, always.
Everyone's
That's the foundation.
That's the foundation. Everyone's got to work their database, and you're looking for your second or third thing, and apply yourself to it. And like I said, all those strategies work. Find someone else. I'm great at this. I've been able to teach other people to do it. I love to do podcasts and things like this, and I appreciate the invite to share because it's worked for me and it will work for others. But if this isn't your thing, find the person who does whatever the other thing is, right? Well, watch their videos. We live in such an amazing time where people are just sharing all their information on YouTube. Watch videos, connect with someone in the same way you just reached out to me on Facebook. We're all so hyper connected now. The ability to just find someone and ask them what they're doing, they'll probably share it with you.
There you go. Exactly. Or just listen to other episodes of this podcast because we've got everybody talking about everything.
There you go. That's exactly it.
Dan, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure everybody really appreciates it. And I look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
My pleasure. I appreciate it. One last thing I'm going to just throw in there for anybody who is interested in trying Vulcan 7. You can go to vulcan7.com/Dan DeMott, and you can get a trial at a substantially discounted rate. They're an amazing company. They also have a wealth of information on their website and videos you can watch of other people. But if you use that link, you can get a discount. Try it out for 30 days.
Sure. Why not? Go for it. Absolutely. And this is not sponsored, by the way. And any
It's just not sponsored. I'm not sponsored, but it worked for me. And I asked them to set me up for that because so many people asked me about it and I wanted a way for people to try it out. It is a commitment. And I know, especially for new agents, making any kind of financial commitment is tough. So if you go on there, you can try it out for 30 days. It's like $50. And if it works for you, then you're going to make a huge multiple on the cost of committing to it. And if it doesn't work for you, you're out $50 and you're on to your next thing.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if people want to send you a referral because they like the way you do business, they like, what you've been saying, how can they get a hold of you?
Yep, absolutely. Cell phone, text or call 561-329-4972, or dan@homesourceteam.net.
And remind everybody where you're working.
I'm in Palm Beach County, Florida, which is southeast Florida, about an hour and a half north of Miami.
Perfect. Thanks again so much. We'll see everybody on the next episode.
Thanks.